This is a crazy idea, but do you want to start this episode with a recap of the episode?
We haven't done that once yet. Yeah, let's do that. So last episode, Chloe and Ryan and Sarah were cornered by Hanlon's men and Luke turning on them and becoming one of Hanlon's men, because turns out the group he was looking for was Hanlon. Ryan stays with Hanlon but gets captured. Chloe and Sarah take off. They meet Allie, Andre, and a character named Nolan. They end up having deep conversations. Meanwhile, Ryan is being interrogated by Hanlon, who shoots her in the leg and then shoots Declan to make a point of how much control he has, because Kieran then says, like, oh yeah, it was Ryan who shot him. And then we do a big rescue mission at the hockey arena. They go in, they get Ryan out of there. Nolan gets shot, unfortunately. Somebody has to die. And then we end up having a very intense conversation between Ryan and Chloe as they open up fully to all the past pain. And then we introduce the graves and we get to see just how big this issue is. And then we're off to the finale, so yeah.
So the end of the episode, having all of those graves, sparks this huge drive for them to be like, we need to end this now. And so it starts with one of my favorite scenes of the whole series when they slap the map on the.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was like a barrel.
A barrel, yeah, it was a barrel.
It was like
okay.
a makeshift table. It was perfect, yeah.
Really cool art department, again. They like, and it's all around them, and they're like all trying to figure out this game plan about how they're gonna finally take down Hanlon and his group.
Little fact with that too, we had, I made sure that Allie pointed to Barrington area, so there's like a little reference to Barrington. Didn't quite shoot there, but hey, that's where in story the final fight takes place.
That's awesome, because also, if you don't mind me saying, originally we were going to be shooting this big showdown
in Barrington.
In Barrington,
there's an exhibition park down there that we were going to use. Yeah, it's someday we'll get there.
Which was so cool.
It was so cool.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
We will get there, but instead we changed the location to be a community center.
Yep.
But so anyway, they're making their game plan though, and tell me how you came up with this, like, it's just a crazy, like...
Admittedly, this is the one time I'll be like, you know, I kind of maybe perhaps stole this from a certain space series that came out, you know. Everybody rallying around the table being like, all right, what's our plan? Well, this thing has an exhaust port that's pretty big, we can hit that. It was like, it kind of a nostalgia harkening back to my childhood, knowing like, yeah, all those adventure movies, like there's always a moment where they had to get a plan together and like all the heroes were there and they had to figure it out. There's back and forth. It's a very fast-paced scene, so it's like, yeah, we're in it and we go. But one of my favorite moments of this is when Sarah speaks up, because they're gonna do it like they're gonna wait a day, prep and go. And then Sarah with this like hit of bravery is like, no, screw that. Let's go now, because they're not going to expect us now. Let's do this. And everybody agrees, which catches Sarah off guard, because she's like, wait, I didn't know you guys would go for that. But it's a cool moment because everybody's on the same page. These people that did not know each other 24 hours prior, the only people that had ever met had been Allie and Chloe for 2 hours, 3 hours at a bar. Now they're all together and they're like, yeah, we trust everybody. Let's do this. Let's kick some ass. And the fact that they are so low on people. Like, we see the graves, we see how big this crew was. Like, they are the underdogs going in, but they're fighting like they're 1,000, and it's incredibly exciting.
It is so exciting. You're right, when Sarah's like, let's go now, and like the energy and the camaraderie of like that group being like,
it grows, like it just,
you can feel it. I get goosebumps. I do. But then right before they actually go, we have this wonderful scene between Chloe and Ryan.
Yeah. I wanted there to be some sort of last kind of push for Ryan, because she is still kind of in between, like, what do I do? Like, do I fight this guy? Because there are a lot of moments, and we'll dive deep into this later, but there's a lot of parallels with Ryan and Hanlon to Ryan and her father. I think she has a hard time not comparing those, because there is a similarity between like their power and their abuse and everything like that. So she doesn't know what to do. Like, does she want to help her sister? Yes, but I think she's still also resentful and having a hard time beating that trauma of her past. What does it, and it's a line that we all reacted to when it was filmed, was Chloe saying,
"And I always want to be your sister."
Because we all were like, whew, That's pretty good. That's a good line. I think we all had to take 5 minutes after that. And it's actually a moment that, you know, there are subtle callbacks within the episode, and then within the shows that call back to the movie. That was a big one because the last thing that Chloe ever said to Ryan is, "You're not my family anymore." And then she cracks her in the head with a bat, and then, you know, it's over. So 5 years later, for her to be that mature person in the room again, and to talk to Ryan and say, like, "I always want to be your sister. I always want to be your family. Like, I didn't mean what I said back then." I think it just tailspins Ryan's whole mentality, like, what do I do? Which also leads to one of my favorite moments with Sarah when she says to Ryan,
I don't think you're weak because of what happened. But I think you're strong because you're here now.
it's like the most open thing. And that, I mentioned this way, way back in the first episode of this After the Divide show. There are moments when Sarah has her hat off where she is the true version of herself. This is one of the first moments, aside from a moment in episode 5 where Sarah takes the hat off. She walks away with the hat on, and then Ryan thinks she's alone, and then we hear Sarah talk, and we cut back to her and the hat's off. So she's her truest self there, and she says that line. I think that and the family line of like, I always want to be your sister, are what really puts Ryan on the right path. She doesn't quite get there, and she needs a few more pushes, but I think now she's turning over and becoming that big sister to Chloe that she hasn't been for so long because of anger and abuse and trauma.
Ryan and Chloe have their lovely moment of reconciliation. Mm-hmm. And then we're getting into it. It's like the big, finally, it's the showdown. Mm-hmm. And the showdown opens with a cameo of someone who looks super familiar to me. I can't really put my dumb little finger on it. But
I have a brother that can act. I get him to do stuff.
Is that what it is?
I wasn't actually in episode 2. I just let him do it. No, yes, I'm in this, which doesn't make any sense if you saw the first film. But my take is like, because I had a cameo in the movie, and I got shot in the back by a little girl and got killed. So my take is that I had a twin brother, and he's who I'm playing in this. So we're related. No, I had a cameo because it was one of those things where I didn't want to get an actor to do the stunt. And Ty, who plays Andre, had to tackle whoever that was going to be. And Ty, I believe, has 0% body fat and is all muscle and could probably rip a phone book in half with ease. So I was like, okay, maybe let's not have an actor do this. So I did it and got tackled. And I promise you, that'll be the last time I am ever in a scene in my own projects ever again.
I will hold you to that.
You better, please. Hold me accountable, because oh my God. And also, weirdly enough, I'm really good at playing complete scuzzbags.
You're so stupid good at it.
I know.
I think you should do it for the rest of your life. And
method acting.
Method acting. The takeover. So, as we mentioned before too, like this big showdown was supposed to happen at this exhibition park.
Yeah.
So you had it written one way completely to be dependent on these several buildings and this one layout. And then all of a sudden we couldn't shoot there.
Whoops.
Whoops. And you had to completely rewrite this in a very short amount of time.
Well, not only that, we didn't have a location until very close to filming. So not only could I not rewrite it, once we got there, I had to rewrite it again because I didn't know what the place looked like until we got there. We ended up renting out a community center, which worked beautifully for what we needed, but I didn't have any, I couldn't go in ahead of time and see really detailed looks. So we kind of got there and kind of be like, okay, this will all work, but we just have to maneuver kind of what we're doing. So we kind of gutted the place in terms of where we could go and made it work. But it was like really run and gun, touch and go for a while there, but it worked. I think it worked out.
It works, but it's hilarious because again, the whole point of that takeover is that they're all working at the same time and they're all trying to distract each other. And so for us trying to, again, on the day, figure out where they were going to go and the route that they took, and then, technically they would have gone, it was such a crazy. And I also, that day that we were at the community center, we broke our record for the most scenes shot that day.
Yeah, that was absurd.
It was absolutely absurd. We're never going to do it again. It was a bad idea.
I think we shot like 20 pages
yeah.
of script that day, or maybe even more.
I was going to say we shot like 12 scenes.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, so
yeah,
easily.
yeah.
Like it was a bit ridiculous, but it was insane. So
it was exhausting in a good way.
In a very good way, but it was so fun because we have this lobby. So actually, like we have the gymnasium where we have like Luke tied up. And there's this like showdown happening there, but then there's the final really big showdown, which is in the lobby.
Yep.
And it's revealed that the attacker, who was Danielle's killer, is back.
Yep.
Never thought we'd see him again, but we did.
We did. I didn't plan to see him again at all. So it kind of shifted from the original story where it was going to be one of Halen's goons that she was aiming to shoot. And the original idea was that she was going to shoot somebody to save Andre or Allie, or maybe Sarah in the end. And she goes to shoot him, and then Ryan stops because Ryan doesn't want, and this is jumping a little bit ahead, but Ryan doesn't want her to shoot the gun because she knows what's going to happen. Like the moment you fire that gun, guess what? Your life's going to change, and it's not going to be for the better. But once we saw Kristyn's work, and once we realized, like, okay, you know what if we change this to not being about like saving somebody, which you can kind of, if you're going to save somebody, you can kind of like, you can sell it as something good. Like, no, Chloe had to do that or Andre was going to die. Like, what do you mean? She had to do that. Well, what if you do it where it's just out of revenge, where she takes aim at the one person that's really not that big of an issue because she wants to get revenge for her best friend, because now she's seeing the killer of her best friend in front of her. And then Ryan stops her with the gun. But it presented a way where it's like, you can really have this be that she was this close to corrupting herself because she was doing it out of complete revenge, and she was doing it out of complete spite and hatred for this character. And Ryan kind of saved the day, which we'll talk about a little bit later. One thing though too is that when they all separate, it is kind of the last divide for them, because then they all go their separate ways because they plan on doing it together, but things don't go right. There's more people that show up than they expected, and then they end up going their separate ways to try and figure it out. Chloe, the youngest one, ends up trying to go after the leader, Hamlin. That makes sense. Sarah runs back to help Allie and Andre after they hear a scream, and then Ryan takes on these two goons that are coming her way, one of them being Danielle's killer, which Chloe doesn't see right away because she's already gone before he shows up. It's the division of them, and I mentioned this earlier, like when they're alone, yes, they can hold their own, but they tend to lose when they're alone. It's exactly what happens here. They all go their separate ways, and they end up being either cornered or stuck or just in a situation where they are losing the fight. Allie and Andre too, like Otney and Ty, first real thing that they were doing, like in terms of acting in film or TV, and they were like seasoned pros. It was incredible. You're right. Nuts. We did say it was Otney's first acting gig, but it was also Ty's first acting gig. Like they had never acted before, ever. No. And then they both just like killed it. Perfect. Yeah. Killed it. Yeah. It's a good dynamic too, because it's a story about family, and it's a story about siblings for the most part, and to have another set of siblings and also have our main character not be resentful towards that, which in any case, like maybe she could be, and it could be justified because she went through so much. But to have her go through all that she did and still look at them with a smile is great. But that all leads to a very, very great scene, and a very emotional scene, and a complete jump back into the film when Chloe gets cornered by Declan, and then she wakes up, or she closes her eyes, and then when she opens them again, she is 5 years in the past, and she is watching basically the final scene of the movie happen in front of her eyes again. And it's the first time she actually looks her brother in the eye in one of these like memories of her life, because she's hearing this conversation happen that she heard before because she was part of it. And we see her younger self listening to Seth. And when Seth says, you're so much braver than me, and Chloe says, no, I'm not, it's her, at the time, yeah, I believed it, and now I don't, because now I'm cornered again. I tried to make this work, it didn't work. And then we reveal that within the dream, Seth is looking straight at his younger sister. And she looks right at him, and for the first time, looks at his face since he died, thinks about his face, is willing to confront it, and that gives her the strength to move on snap out of this and do it for the right reasons. I wanted a way to have Seth have a finality to him that wasn't so heavy. And the only way I think we could do it was doing something with a scene and presenting it in a different light from the movie. And I think this was the perfect way to do it, where it's like she's reliving the last time that, you know, they were together, like Sarah, Seth, and Chloe 5 years ago. And now we're adding to that and having him kind of break the fourth wall a little bit and look to her. And it gives that motivation, like, you know what, I can handle this. You know, I'm strong enough to handle this. Yes, this sucks. Yes, this is hard, but we can make this work. It's one of my favorite moments, just because of the weight of everything that's going on. It was also cool too to have, like, you were wearing Chloe's outfit and reading for Chloe when we were shooting younger Chloe, and the reverse of that and everything. So you had the wardrobe on, standing on an apple box trying to be as tall as her. But it worked out. Like, given the circumstances of how we had to do that scene and how we really had to kind of like migrate and like, how the hell do we do this? Because we're missing a key component. How do we do this? I think we made the best of it, and it really packs that emotional punch before we go into the actual finale of Hanlon's demise.
Of Hanlon's demise.
Yes.
So at this like final big showdown, there's a bunch of people in the lobby. Finally, like it was one of my favorite things to shoot again, because we have like there's like 8 or 9 people there, like
yeah, massive,
a huge group of people, and the energy is like tense, and you think, and then all of a sudden, Kieran
twist
just turns.
Yep. We were kind of showing subtle hints throughout the episode, because me and Rory had a long conversation, like, you know, when does he start to not think this is right? And it all leads to him being like, you know what, screw this. And I think part of it too was like seeing Hanlon's just complete dismissal of caring for his people and shooting Declan in the arm. It's like, okay, that's it. Like, you're just doing this, like, what, for fun now? It just doesn't work. It's not worth your time. So when Kieran deflects and says, like, screw it, let's get out of here, you know, I wanted to build it in a way where it's like, okay, it feels like this big fight gonna happen, and then nothing. Let's get out of here. He's in a house down the road. Screw this, like, just go get him. I love it because when we first meet Kieran, he is like military stance, we'll listen to whatever Hanlon says, and in the end, he's the one that outs him and causes him his final demise, which is fantastic. One moment of this too, once they leave, you know, we hear of the walkie-talkie that Andre's hurt, and Allie is thinking like, shit, I gotta stay here and confront Hanlon, I can't go back. And Chloe's the one that says like, no, you need to go, because she's the one that knows that I know what it feels like to not have that brother, you better go back and fix it now, because I don't want you to feel like that. Sarah says, yeah, I'll go too. And immediately everybody's like, no, you're staying with us. So the three are together. And then we get to a shot where you and I both had like a moment of like, whew. When Allie leaves, Chloe walks up, Sarah follows, and then Ryan walks up, and then they just say, time to end this. Cold chills. And I knew at that moment that no matter what we did prior to this, the show worked, because that moment worked, and it was all aiming towards getting them together, because the title of the episode is what? Together. And now they were finally together. And now we get to finally, I have a photo of it on my phone. I took a photo of it on the monitor because I was like, I'm gonna remember this moment for the rest of my life, because this was the coolest shot I think we ever got. And then it all leads to the big showdown.
The big showdown,
yeah.
The capital B, a big showdown, which is them finally confronting Hanlon.
Yep.
And what I love about this too is that you did make like Hanlon who's the big bad villain guy. He was a coward.
Oh,
and
hugely.
He just left. He just cowered it out and
Yep.
was like, I'm gonna let my men take care of this.
Yep.
Which was so,
And he's in like the bougie house down the road that like, no. He's a complete coward.
He's such a coward,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so, but finally we have the 3 of them showing up to that house, and we
Yep.
finally have the showdown then of the 4 of them, but more specifically between Ryan and Hanlon.
Yep.
And I remember those monologues on the day. Like I remember those scenes on the day. The dialogue is Just please talk to us about that. Like the writing of Ryan, like Ryan's writing to him being like, no, you're gonna sit down and listen. And it's so powerful, Dillon.
I wrote that once, and I never went back and changed it because I liked what was there. I may have changed like 1 or 2 words just to kind of make it punch a little more, but the overall idea, it was from day one, I knew what I wanted to say. This was very much me using Ryan's mouth to say, I think, a lot of what I wanted to say, as long as it made sense with the character. I didn't want to say things that didn't make sense with the character, but Ryan's stance and what she was talking about how like you don't get to destroy anybody's life anymore and all this stuff. It was, I think there were certain things in my life that were happening that were frustrating me and getting me to the point of like, you know, this sucks, I hate this, like, man, I wish I could just say this. And what I usually do is I use my art to kind of say the stuff that I maybe can't say out loud. And this was one of those instances where I wrote it, I knew what it was going to be, I knew where it was going to go, and I didn't touch it because the first time I wrote it, I'm like, no, this is it, this is the finale. What I love too is that originally we were going to shoot this somewhere else, and it was going to be outdoors and at night. But what I love is that we ended up, just because of the location circumstance, filming it in a house, which gave it a nice kind of bookend where all of Ryan's trauma happens in this house, the Hatfield home. And now she gets to kind of free herself of that, basically like ball and chain of all this trauma. She gets to free herself in a house, but she's in control. And she's looking down at this coward. And she's telling Hanlon Kane how she feels, but really she's confronting her father and saying exactly what she wants to say. And she played it perfectly, because it's the most we ever hear her speak in the episode, or in the series, and she friggin' delivers. I talked about the movie when I was like huddled under my mom's bed watching a monitor being like, oh, this is what it feels like when somebody directs an Oscar-winning performance. Same thing this time. Then it leads to like a very emotional moment that again kind of mirrors the movie when, you know, Ryan walks out and she's very confident and she feels good, and then she just collapses, which leads to a very emotional ending of Chloe welcoming Sarah as a Hatfield, pretty much. She finally gets a last name, in a way, at the end of this, where they're back at the family home, which is really fun and poetic to me, because the first episode was called Anywhere But Home, and now, once they're finished, they wanted to go back home. Now, the home doesn't last, but no, it was cool. I like that kind of moment between them where they're just looking at the stars and wondering what's next, and then they have that moment, you know what, I want to welcome you to the family, because like this would have happened anyways, so why not just let's just do it. You're my sister now. It's a nice like kind of walk off into the sunset for them in a way, where these characters, will we ever see them again? I don't know. I really don't. Like, peek behind the curtain, I have no idea. This could be it. This could be the very last time we ever see these characters. And I wanted to give them a note to end on where it's like, okay, if this is the end, we have a nice ending for everybody.
And the 3 of them walking like in unison, going down the road, it's just like, like.
And think how hard it was for Chloe to walk down that road the first time. And now that she's with Sarah and Ryan, it's like, nope, let's go. We're going. And there's no hesitation, they just bail.
That's such a good point, Dillon. With your writing, everything that you do is so full circle, and I love that. Like, you're right. Like your very first episode was her walking down that road, and it was the hardest thing ever. And then it ends with them walking down the road, and it's
with like a brisk pace. Like they're ready,
and it's like they're back, they're together, they've burned down their past and their old regimes, and they're just starting new, and they're kicking ass. And I love this like female dynamic of sticking together and just being super strong and cool. And I wonder what's next for them.
I'm sorry.